Mic check 1 2 3 4. Mic check 1 2 3 4.
Okay, well, good evening all. Happy New Year. Welcome to our first meeting of 2022. This is the meeting of the Growth Planning Committee. And I'm Dan Saunders, and we'll go around the room introducing ourselves. Janet?
Good evening, Janet Powell. Happy New Year.
Let's see, Jim?
Happy New Year, James McMahon.
All right. Paul?
Happy New Year, James McMahon, but I'm Paul Hogan.
All right. Who else we got here? Eli?
Hi, Eli Rubin.
Okay. Anyone else from the committee? I don't see on my list. Then Liz? Liz Durfee? Hey, Liz. And Tom?
Right here.
All right. Excellent. So tonight's meeting is a really short agenda, but important topic, really important topic, and that's our goals, policies, and strategies. So I guess Tom or Liz, I'll let you guys take us through this.
Sure. I can kick us off. I think we left off in the middle of the natural resources chapter strategy list. So I'll just pull up my screen and share our list again. All right, how does that look?
That's where we were, I think.
Where we were, okay, I'm just, well, we're gonna scroll. I'm gonna actually just turn off the track changes for now, just so we have a little bit more space in the window. Okay, so we are starting with line 13 on draft 3. Does anyone want me to blow this up a little bit more?
Looks good, Liz.
Okay, great. Oh, so we're just
Liz,
gonna...
sorry, but before we jump in, I just wanted to ask the committee. Werner and I had been talking and just curious if the committee wanted to be, as we go over each line item, delegating kind of the responsible party at the same time, doing that now versus doing that in the next iteration. Just thinking if you did want to do that now, then staff could kind of do the back leg work on trying to start that communication going, and potentially could have feedback by the time we revisit. Alternatively, we could not, and we can do the whole thing, on the second iteration, but just wanted to throw that out there.
Okay, I think maybe where it's clear, we certainly can. I just don't want to get into spend 5-6 minutes talking about what's the best committee for it versus, getting through these. So yeah, I'm okay with where it's definitely clear that, this is a planning board, or this board of selectmen, or this is us, or this is the lighting committee, that we can do that. But what do other members think?
Yeah, I think we,
Go ahead,
from this point going forward, I think we should try. That would be cut down on some time. I think.
Yeah, I don't want to get too bogged
Yeah, of
down
course.
in it. Yeah.
One thing that Tom and I had talked about was having a list or a menu of potential responsible parties for that could be responsible for any number of strategies. So I don't know what staff think about getting that list together before we try to assign responsibility, or how you want to proceed, or if we're just going to do a brainstorm.
Eli,
Yeah,
when would you?
Sorry.
Eli, when would you consider sending out a notice for them to start working on this?
Well, I mean, I guess let's say, for example, if we reached number 21 and it was very clear to the committee, this is something we want such and such party to work on, we could go right ahead and reach out to them about that, and then have feedback.
Yeah.
And if it's not clear, like to Dan's point, we can just pass over it. Liz, we can absolutely come up with, some kind of menu of options, maybe for the next meeting. But if it's easy, if you wanted to just do it for this time, you can say it out and I could just jot the note down. Or if not, we can proceed as normal.
The reason I asked you that, does it make sense to notify all those committees now just to say, hey, this is coming down the road and they should consider slating time on their end just to, forecast out working on this? And
Well, I think the purpose for notifying them is to give an opportunity for them to review it, to see that what we've written there makes sense, that they feel it's in their wheelhouse. It's certainly not to start working on it. Obviously, unless it's something they're already doing. I don't think I would even ask them to start doing that until, the town approves. Right? We go through all that work and start work, and then the town doesn't approve this, then, we're back to square one. So it's really more about making sure that they agree, that we agree at the end, us and the committee that this gets this, that we all agree to the work that's listed and get their buy-in on it before we put it before the voters. Right.
So
and that was the thing we missed in the last go around. We didn't do that, so then it became work on our part to try to elevate this afterwards. And I'd rather get that done ahead of time. It's really in my book. This time right here is probably the most important time we're going to spend on this whole plan. These strategies and getting the buy-in from all the different committees that this is really what we want to do. Right? Everything else that we've talked about in those drafts it's good information. It's supportive of all these strategies. But this is the real work.
So I have a question as a matter of procedures with working with different departments and boards. Do you think they prefer to see all of the draft strategies together or receive them in a piecemeal fashion? I mean, I think some strategies like for example, we went through the first round of strategies for the historic resources chapter, and there are particular responsibilities that we might suggest for that chapter that they may not have. The Historical Society, for example, that we might not have any other strategies that we recommend that they're the responsible party, but for like the planning board or the selectmen, they're going to have strategies throughout the full plan. So I'm just wanted to throw that out there.
Yeah.
They may not want a list of 10 strategies every other week, or maybe they prefer that.
Yeah, apologies for, having technical difficulties and popping in here a little bit late. But I think, the last time we worked on this, I think, and Dan, you can help me out with the timeline on this, but we had put together all of the strategies that were assigned to, say, for instance, the planning board, and we had all of them together and sent them off kind of in one batch, as opposed to piecemeal. My concern with, sending 5 here, 5 there to different groups is that starts to get complicated in terms of tracking that and just communicating with those groups, especially if they're groups that don't necessarily meet on a regular basis. I think, for ease of communication, it would be good to have, like, here are the 10 here are the 10 strategies that belong, or that we're anticipating will belong to this group. And then we're able to just, have that conversation, with them maybe once, as opposed to 4 or 5 times. Because I feel like you could spend a whole year chasing that.
Okay. I'm fine with either way. I'm okay with at least identifying who we think it is if it's very clear at the time.
Right. Yeah, I think some of them are
Whatever you
very,
guys think is best.
I think
in that
some of them are
communication
very,
piece.
some of them are very clear as far as who they're going to belong to. And then others, what we may need to do is go back and reference the previous plan to say, to say, all right, who did we give that to? And maybe that's part of this too, is that, we should bring forward the list of who all the responsible parties were from the last one, so that everybody just knows who that is.
Okay, so why don't we do this? Why don't we just go ahead and go through these strategies? If it's clear who the party is, we can just make a note of it. And then we can make a determination at a later point, whether we send it to them one by one or together.
Has Jim Fitzgerald joined us yet? He said, you sent an email saying he's having trouble getting in.
Don't see whether he's joined yet.
He's
I
asking
didn't
for
see him.
help. Yeah,
Yeah, I didn't see an email.
yeah. Somebody has the link. They could send it to
Yeah,
him. Help us from-
if I'll just, Jim, if you're listening, if you just go to the panelists and sign in as a panelist. I'm sorry, sign in as just as a guest, and Dave will rise you up to be a panelist. There was no link for the committee members for this particular meeting. Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you.
Oh, Liz needs to be promoted too. Liz Johnson, I see. Oh, she's already been promoted?
Yeah.
Did we lose Liz?
Liz Durfee? Liz, are you with us?
I'm here. Yep.
Once you start in on line 13.
Oh, I thought we were waiting for others to get on. Sorry.
Yeah,
Sure.
no, I think we're good to continue, and we'll just keep an eye out for
Okay.
Jim Fitzgerald.
All right, great.
Yep,
Excellent.
he's coming in the door.
Okay, so we're going to start out with line 13, and my understanding is that if there's an obvious responsible party, then we'll jot it down for the strategies, but we won't get into a discussion, much of a discussion.
Exactly.
And fortunately, we don't need to assign responsible parties for the goals or the policies. So our goal here is protect rare and endangered species. The policy is to educate the public about rare and endangered species. And there's 3 strategies under this goal and policy. And the first one is to collaborate with conservation partners to develop an education and outreach program to inform property owners about the presence of endangered, rare, and significant species and how to avoid impacting these species.
I would
Okay.
I would just expand owners to say owners and others, or owners and visitors. There's a lot of people who use the resources who do not own.
Sure.
Okay, I will add that in. Next strategy is work with the Maine Department of Transportation and Kennebunkport's Public Works Department to accommodate known migratory crossings of endangered reptiles and amphibians as part of road construction and repair projects. Place caution signs at appropriate sites. That last bit is a carryover from the previous plan, current plan.
I would imagine that was probably a public works strategy.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's good. I'd say keep it.
Okay. Line 17, place signage on beaches during plover nesting season.
Do we do that now?
I believe it's there already, but I would say keep it.
Yeah, I mean,
Definitely
think-
keep it.
that becomes one of those ones that has, in terms of time frame, is an ongoing strategy that I think likely belongs with the beach. Paul, do you guys over at Beach Advisory have a hand in that one, don't you?
Well, we sort of keep track of what Maine Audubon is doing. It's really them who do it under a contract, I guess, with the state. I'm not really
Okay.
sure how that works,
Yeah.
but I think Maine Audubon is the responsible party. We've always had a liaison with the beach committee.
Got it. Yeah.
Do you think it needs to be a strategy for the town if it's, led by other entities?
I would say confirm that the signage is there and contact the appropriate people in order to make sure it's there. It's not.
Well, it's temporary signage.
Right.
I mean, I think it's fine to have it with the Beach Advisory
Sure.
Committee, just because they liaise with Maine Audubon, and it's one of those things that if they're already doing it, it's not really an action item, but it recognizes that it's an ongoing thing that's done.
Yeah, the other thing that has happened is that they provide, maybe it's covered in the other one, the educational part of it. It's sort of done by Maine Audubon. Sometimes we have a summer intern that comes out of the beach committee fund. But it may be covered under number 17, so it's probably unnecessary here.
Okay.
Oh, hey, Dan, we didn't tell guests how to participate if they wanted to when we started.
Oh, yeah, thank you, Paul. Yeah, if there are any guests who would like to participate or have a comment, please just raise your hand and we'll bring you forward so you can ask your question or provide your comment. We're at this time not allowed to use the chat feature any longer. We want to hear your voice, so thank you.
All right, I'll move on to line 18 unless there's any other comments about the strategies under the previous goal. So line 18, the goal is protect forest resources and farmland from the negative impacts of development. And the policy under this goal is to support agricultural and forestry activities. And there's 4 strategies drafted here. The first is support forestry and agricultural uses and activities such as agritourism, backyard chickens, farms, farm stands, and firewood sales.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Yep.
Next is adopt a right to farm ordinance.
The state just did that. The voters just did that, so I don't think it's necessary. Would be I don't know if anyone locally would have a different opinion, but we just got a referendum passed on that, which was very important. But now it's protected statewide.
So Paul, you're sure it's statewide and it's not just the state authorizing a municipality to do it?
I believe so. It was a people's initiative. The referendum passed significantly in the fall. I don't know all the details, but it was promoted by, MAFCA and other groups. So I think it extends the right to each community. I don't think we have to enact something separate.
Paul, do you have the details on what people have the right to do, just so people are aware?
I don't have them.
Okay.
Why don't we flag this one and we can report back at our next meeting just to confirm.
Okay, yeah, let's do that.
What the ordinance says, and then we can determine if it should be included or not, and also discuss what the legislation does say.
Sounds good.
Just to back up 1 to 20.
Yep.
Should we be putting something in there just besides chicken? Should we be putting in something about just livestock in general? Like,
That's fine.
Sure.
I'm just wondering, if somebody's got a big
good.
goat farm or, other livestock, I just don't want it to limit ourselves.
Yeah, why don't we just do that? Just say livestock versus backyard chickens.
So
Is there any downside to that?
well,
The ordinance has specific definitions, so we should probably check what is included, and I may have, but I can't remember right now, what's included under their definition of farm. And that may include livestock, but do you know, Werner, offhand?
so I think for this one, what might make sense would be to, specifically, ask to review the current land use ordinance for consistency with the recently adopted right to farm law. That's
Number 20 or 21?
that would be 20, I think at 21.
I think Jim's question was on 20. Was it?
Well, they're sort of related, and does it,
Well,
what relationship does it have with the actual zones?
I think,
Can someone have a cow in their backyard on Pearl Street downtown?
well, and that's, I think, what's, the right to farm law from, I haven't done a deep review on it, but from what I understand, it deals a lot with whether or not ag and farm related activities can be considered nuisances. And so just because you may have, so in some communities, you could have certain farm activities that might be conditional uses as opposed to permitted. And so it could be subject to specific performance standards, and people might qualify some of those activities as nuisances. And so I think that's what this deals with. So again, I would say the strategy really, one of the strategies ought to be just a review of what we currently have on the books to make sure it doesn't conflict with state law.
Yeah, that's what 21 can say. That would be a good addition.
So, support forest and agricultural uses and activities such as agritourism, backyard chickens, farms, farm stands, and firewood sales. Farms, I think we kind of split them out as to whether or not you're dealing with, whether or not you're, whether you're raising livestock as opposed to raising or growing crops. Farm stands are already a permitted use in town. Firewood sales, we don't really address firewood sales, in the ordinance. And so I think some communities have taken some of these pieces, for instance, backyard chickens, is a fun one, So some communities have gotten very specific in their ordinance of where they create these definitions of saying, as a property owner, you can have, whatever, I'm just going to pull out a number. You could have 6 chickens and it's not considered a commercial use, that it's just, It's those, those are there for your own, personal use, type thing. So some communities have chosen to do that. Kennebunkport has never, chosen to really, get into the minutia of, backyard chickens or personal livestock. So the other thing that, you have is you've got a lot of subdivisions that have specific, they have their own private deed restrictions that deal with some of these, items. We have taken a position, I would say practically, that, it hasn't really been an issue, knock on wood here. And so we haven't felt the need to bring forward additional, language to try to regulate something that hasn't been a nuisance or hasn't been a problem.
And there's no big public demand to do that today, so.
No,
I mean, sleeping dogs lie.
Right. I mean, most folks that choose to have backyard chickens in town that, that I've dealt with have done so in a respectful fashion, and hasn't really risen to the level of needing to define what that is.
Dan, we have a raised hand in the audience.
Oh yeah, I'm not seeing that, but thank you for bringing that up. Dave, can you? Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to make the comment that the right to food ordinance is what was passed recently, not the right to farm ordinances. They're really two different things. So I just wanted to bring your attention to that.
All right, thank you.
I thought I heard that. Is that, I assume, if you want to produce your own milk, there's, or honey or something. I think that's what I was kind of asked. I didn't know if Paul had details on it. That's kind of what I thought it meant.
Yeah, but what it says is it gives Maine residents an unalienable right to grow, raise, produce, and consume food of their choice. That's what it says. It doesn't say anything about farming. So that's the right to farm is something completely different, needs to be addressed separately.
Thank you. So why don't we flag line 21 for now, if everyone's okay with that. We'll loop back and bring some more information forward to the next meeting about the right to food ordinance and maybe the status of a separate ordinance. Jim, you had a question about including, I think at the beginning of this conversation, including livestock in line 20.
I just made the suggestion on 20 to change it from just chickens to livestock. But I think we talked about it, and like Paul mentioned, I think we all support it, and unless it becomes a problem. But I think if an ordinance ever came about, I would assume that we would, create it where there's some kind of variance based on zoning. So if somebody wanted to have a cow in their yard, we would somehow consider it. But again, I agree with Paul. At this point, we're just supporting it.
All right, is it all right if I move on to line 22 then?
Please.
Okay, so that is amend the land use ordinance to permit farmers markets. That's something that doesn't currently show up specifically in the ordinance. Everyone comfortable with that?
Yeah, and they can decide when, where, how.
We're not getting into like any of the details of where, time, parking, etc. That's something that someone else will work out.
Exactly. That's good.
Sounds good.
Line 23 is amend the land use ordinance and subdivision regulations to develop performance standards to protect these resources. land developers should identify critical natural resources and utilize beginning with habitat maps. And this is based on some of our discussions during meetings.
Yeah, so that one, so where you're identifying the subdivision regs, that's an item there that would fall within the guise of the planning board.
Yeah. Do we want to, I agree, Werner, but do we want to reference the actual specifically that they have to use beginning with habitat maps, or can we leave that to however we amend the land use ordinance or subdivision regs?
Well, that's what's not being looked at now, I think. That's why.
Someone mentioned that using the maps, that specific data set during one of our more recent meetings, I believe. I don't remember who.
Yeah, whenever a subdivision plan goes through, when it goes through the DEP, the DEP's permitting process, they do reference and look at the beginning with habitat, information. What's not often clear is what exactly, those locations mean, because we've talked about a little bit about how the data is created, and some of the data, is old or not up to date. And so you have to reach out to the particular state departments that manage those data layers. And so that's typically handled and managed through when a subdivision goes through a planning board site plan review, that's typically managed through the DEP's process.
We create redundancy here then?
I mean, I don't think it necessarily